Welcome to the Boldest You podcast. I'm your host, Carrie, and I'm thrilled to bring you real conversations with bold women and men. In this podcast, we dive deep into their stories, exploring what drives their courage, shapes their vision, and fuels their desire to leave a lasting impact. These are honest, vulnerable, and inspiring moments that celebrate what it means to be bold. Let's discover their legacies together. Today's Bold Woman of the Hour is Anna Larson, a director at Flint Group, where she blends creativity, strategy, and a people-first approach to leadership. A helper, mentor, and advocate at heart, she's passionate about authenticity and believes the boldest moments in life often happen quietly, but we should learn to be louder about them. Around the office, she's known as the plant lady. Outside of work, she's her fiance's sidekick, pet mom to Eva the cat and Dobie the dog, and a proud auntie to Wilder and Wren. I'm excited for you to get to know Anna. Let's get into it. Hi, Anna. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, I am so excited. This is my first podcast ever as a guest.
Ooh, well, podcast debut. I'm excited to have you. Well, we start every podcast with talking about being bold. So, Anna, tell us a time when you've been bold.
So, two different sort of life journeys come to mind for me, and these won't be a surprise to anybody who knows me. But the two places where I'm really proud of, where I would consider boldness, braveness. I have been sober for 7.5 years, so I would say making that decision, getting there, that was really a bold moment. And I was a caregiver for one of my best friends as he was in his last years of life. And that was a time where I had to be bold. There was no other choice. So, one, I chose the sobriety I chose. And I guess the sobriety was also necessary to my survival. And the caregiving was, it felt like there was no other options. So, both of those things have greatly shaped who I am and where I am today, and I'm super super grateful to be here.
Wow, both of those are big moments.
I know, a little heavy. Like I was like, oh, those are the first that came to mind, and but now I look back and I can't imagine it any other way.
And I loved how when you were sharing, you said, I'm really proud. Because I think that's something, as I've talked to a lot of different people, and this concept of bold, sometimes it's really hard to own those moments and to recognize that like we can be proud of ourselves for those moments that we've experienced.
For sure. I would thank therapy for that. I had a really incredible woman who told me, think about yourself. What does Anna want? You should be proud of yourself. You did this. Are you kidding me? You did this all. And I think especially as women, we don't often give ourselves the credit that we deserve. And as Midwesterners, we try to be so humble, but I think you really do have to embrace when you have those really proud life moments. And yeah.
Yes, I fully agree. The Midwestern of it is certainly hard. There's so many moments in any conversation I've had where we all stop ourselves from celebrating our wins or those moments in our life because we're trying really hard not to talk ourselves up. And congratulations on 7.5 years of sober. That is truly amazing.
Thank you. I mean, I look at people who are 20 years, 30 years, and I'm like, I can't wait to get there. And I think when you're just starting the journey, you don't know when that milestone, they feel really far away. And now I'm always surprised when they come, because I think at this point in my journey, I'm in such a good spot and I've done a lot of work to get here. That doesn't mean it's not hard, but it's kind of incredible to think back of where I was, how I got here. And the thing that I love most is, well, one, the life I have. I always say I would have nothing if I didn't have sobriety. And that's very, very true. I believe that fully. And I have to make this decision every single day. It's not something you decide once and it's like, okay, great, now I'm on a new path. It's like every day you have to make that decision that you're just not doing that. You're choosing sobriety. So, but one of the cool things is that it has allowed me to connect with so many people because I'm pretty open about it. And I think you would know that from, following me on Instagram. That's kind of where I share a lot of my story. And it has allowed me to connect with people and to support people and help them in any small way that I can. And that's kind of at the core of who I am. I love to help and support people. So it's also given me like maybe another purpose too of let's use my journey to help other people, to support, their loved ones. Maybe it's not always the person who's trying to get sober, but they're like family member or friend. And I'm always happy to do what I can to help them, even if it's just saying like, I get it. This is really hard, or reminding that person who's starting their journey it will get better, but it's probably going to feel worse before it gets better because you're no longer kind of muting life anymore. You're no longer, it's just all real and raw. So,
Yeah.
as difficult as it was to kind of get here, I'm just so grateful. Like every day, it's like, you're just kind of like
Yeah.
in awe. It sounds super cheesy and like maybe if you heard that you'd be like that's not true, but it is. Like every day I'm like, yep, I'm so glad I'm sober, and I consciously think of that because it makes me feel just like immense gratitude. And something else that I've talked about too is there's also a level of I think privilege to how I maybe got to this point. I like to point that out because I had access to all of the resources that I needed, whether it was therapy or family support or whatever it was. I was able to have that, and not everybody has that. So I'm extremely empathetic toward the journey looks different for everybody. And I'm also passionate about making sure that we can get those resources available to everybody, whether it's through like programs in our communities or whatever that might be. Everybody deserves a shot at getting to live life sober. So
Thank you for sharing more about that journey, Anna. And I think the privilege piece is actually not something that I would have thought about. So just hearing your perspective on that is really interesting, and how I'm sure that makes a big difference in your journey. Take us back to that time when you made that decision. I'm sure it was not an easy decision to make. And like you said, you still make that decision every single day. What were
yeah.
some of the biggest changes or things that you noticed day to day that made it a really bold decision to become sober?
So I had known that I needed to be sober essentially since my early 20s.
Mm,
I was not somebody who was able to ever really control my drinking. I would black out a lot, and it only got worse. And it would kind of be in waves. It wasn't like consistent throughout all my 20s and early 30s. But you would think there were many situations prior to me actually getting sober that should have gotten me sober, like getting a concussion, getting drugged, like various things, getting in the, landing in the hospital, things that like were huge and had effects on my life, and I didn't. And I think that also shows like everybody's rock bottom looks different, and it doesn't look how you think it will. So funny enough, so I'm engaged, and well,
congratulations.
thanks. We got engaged in late September last year, and actually my fiance has been a huge part of that journey. So when I met him, I was 30 days sober when I met him because that
Mm,
had been a very wild summer. And we met in the fall, late fall. Actually, it was more like winter, I think, at that point, almost Christmas time. And we went on our first date in the new year. And on our first date, I had told him, like, yeah, I haven't had a drink in 30 days. I'm going to celebrate and get a drink. And I think anybody who's ever gone through that's going to relate to that. And anyway, we kept dating, and I would have cocktails when we were out, and he doesn't drink. Like he just really doesn't. And I remember that he told me, and he was like, "So if partying is, and this is part of your life, and you told me what you want to be, and you told me like, you know, you've struggled with this, like, if this is something you're going to keep doing, I'm out."
Mm.
And I was like, because the first night I met him, when I got home, I said, I just met my husband. Like, I just knew the way he treated me
Wow.
and how genuine he was. And he was so respectful, and he was so kind, and like just genuinely interested in me as a person, not me who I had sort of become in this whole like, I'm the girl who likes champagne and martinis, and I like to go out and I do what I want, and I'm, like, that wasn't necessarily genuinely me. And I felt like he really saw me. So anyway, he was the catalyst, and I was like, I can't lose this person. And so I need to make a decision. And so I did make the decision on to stop drinking in early January of that same time. And I would say, while I did quit drinking, it took a while to detach from that identity, because it was such a part of, I had at the time, two of my best friends were single as well, and we partied together, and thank goodness we did, because they always made sure I was safe. But it was such a part of us, like going out, doing everything together, go on vacation, like it was such a part of who I was. It's what I did. And so detaching from that was actually kind of hard and awkward. And I had a bar cart that I curated, and all these things. And it was like letting go of those pieces. And I remember that Shane, that's my fiance, he was like, "So why do you still have your bar cart? And why do you still have alcohol in your apartment?" And I hadn't thought about it. And so I got rid of everything because I needed to, right? Like, it would not have been good at some point. I think I probably would have started drinking again. But anyway, that's kind of how it came to be. And then, it did take a lot of therapy, and it was really hard learning to live without that numbing, because you peel back layers and you're like, it wasn't about the drinking, it was about what the drinking made me feel, what it made me forget. So that's really what did it for me that time. So my bottom actually looked very different than I thought it would. It wasn't dramatic. It was just, I finally met this person who was everything I had wanted, and he was so sure in himself, and he respected himself and loved himself enough to say, nope, not interested if this is your path right now. But I always like to make the distinction that I did it for myself, because you have to do it for yourself. You cannot do it for another person. And yeah, ever since then, it's just been, making sure that I keep on track with my mental health. And I mean, I'm on anti-anxiety, anti-depression medication. Like so many people I know, I need to go on my little walks, and I need to talk things out sometimes. And sometimes I do crave alcohol. And I know that I can lean on my fiance, my mom, my friends. They will all support me. But it does get easier as you go. And I think we're in a very interesting turning point culture wise, where it's more normalized to not drink, which is incredible. It makes it easier to talk about, but I think it also can complicate the discussion too, because I think it's very different when you need to stop drinking to live, and when you choose to stop drinking because you just don't like it, maybe it doesn't fit your lifestyle anymore, you don't like how it makes you feel. I do think there's a distinction there, because if somebody who doesn't have a problem drinks again, it's not a big deal. It's not going to change the course of their life. If I do, I have nightmares about it, which are very common among people who get sober. It may not destroy my life, but I feel like it will. And it would be like 7.5 years down the drain, and now I'm starting over. So while I'm grateful for the culture shift, thank goodness, I think it can complicate it a little because it's not quite the same thing. And I think it can kind of sell short that aspect of addiction, and
Yeah.
it almost makes it like trendy, and it's not trendy, like,
Yes.
yeah, I might be overthinking that or over explaining it, but I just feel like there's such a distinction between needing to stop because you have a problem and choosing to stop because you just want to live a healthier lifestyle or you just don't like it or whatever that may be. So,
Yes. It's almost like the difference between when it comes to food, like a preference versus an allergy. Like for some
sure.
people, like allergy is or could be life or death. Like if they eat this thing, it will lead to, could possibly lead to negative consequences or just reactions where preference is I don't like that. Or like you said, I just choose like my lifestyle doesn't fit or I don't want to eat this.
Mm-hmm.
And just that like for some people it's a choice and for other people like it is not a choice. Like you have to lean into
Right.
it. And what you said about the culture changing, I was also thinking about how, you're talking about, okay, then I stop and how does this change, just my surroundings and even the things that I have in my house. And maybe this is even more specific in the Midwest because I know we both live in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think of work culture, right? Happy hours are so common, or that's the way that
Yeah.
people connect. And it's you instead of inviting someone to coffee at 4 p.m., it's like, oh, let's go grab a drink across the street. And like just how I'm sure that 7.5 years ago, like there was probably even things from a professional standpoint that you had
Mm-hmm.
to then rethink and reevaluate and like challenge just the natural yes that comes when someone says, hey, do you want to go do this?
Mm-hmm.
Or,
Mm-hmm.
even as someone who plans a lot of events at work, I think about that a lot of like, okay, is there enough options for everyone? Are there options for people who
Mm-hmm.
don't want to drink? Are we in an environment where someone could order something different? Or is that the sole focus of the reason we have this event? Or are there activities that are supporting it? And yeah, just again, that corporate cultureness. And I think here in the
Mm-hmm.
Midwest, it's probably even heightened that makes it even more challenging for someone who is not drinking to then feel still included in those activities. So, did you experience that at all, whether professionally or just personally at all?
Sure. Professionally, I have to say, I have felt so supported.
Hmm.
I'm very lucky that I work with people who have now become what I hope are lifelong friends. And even, where I work, our leadership and like our person, very attuned to that because I'm really open about it. And I've been asked, hey, are you comfortable if we have
Hmm.
this or whatever? But nothing's ever focused on drinking. Like even a holiday party, there will be a mocktail menu, and these aren't just like juices mixed with something,
Yeah.
like they're like really good. And people
Yeah.
will order those instead. There is effort for sure put into that. Like if we have like a Friday, like say a drink cart go around or something that has, maybe seltzers in it, we have poppy, we have different things,
Okay.
you know. So I have not had a challenge with that just because I feel like I've just been honestly lucky
Yeah.
to, I would say in general, corporate culture, though, it is built a lot around, you know, drinks at dinner. And if I ever didn't feel comfortable, I would feel comfortable saying, I'm going to head out. I
Hmm.
think there is always that point. I'm very aware of the point where it's like, and I also manage people. So I feel like there's
Yeah.
always a point where the manager, you go home,
Yep.
and that's okay. I think personally it impacted me more just because so much of my identity and my like free time was spent going out,
Yeah.
and it changed friendships for me.
Mm.
And I've always been kind of a homebody, and then I had this maybe 15 years, 10-year stretch where I just was out all the time. I'm home a lot. I
Yeah.
love being home. My life changed in that, like, I do spend a lot more time solo.
Mm.
I like it. I still see my friends. They're awesome about like we'll do an art class or something like that.
Cool.
There's lots of things we do. I have no problem at this point, like if they want to do happy hour, like I'll join. I have food, mocktails, whatever. I'm in a great spot for that. But
Mm-hmm.
I would say it can be lonely. And I feel lucky though that a lot of my friends are just so supportive and like we've tailored how we interact, and we're all older too now, so it's not how it was, maybe at the start of my journey. But I think there is societal pressure, and it's still like, I don't know, I still get nervous sometimes in social situations if let's say I order like, can I just have a tonic water or something? I'm always scared that I'm going to get somebody's drink instead or something. So I
Sure.
might have a friend like, can you taste this for me?
Yeah.
Or I just order a drink that has, that comes in a can or something like that
Mm-hmm.
to make sure it's not alcohol. But I think corporate culture has shifted, at least
Mm-hmm.
in my experience and talking to other people. But I think that can too depend on the industry you're in and the role
Yeah.
you're in too. I imagine it might be tougher for people who maybe entertain clients and it's expected you're going to have a couple drinks with the client or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. But I would say in general, my journey with that has been on the easier side where I don't feel pressure. I don't feel out of place, which I think is important. So,
Mm. It makes me so happy to hear that your employer supports you in that way and that you
yes,
have had that experience
yes,
because I'm sure
big
it
time.
just makes such a difference in
It
and
does.
continue being able to continue that and feel comfortable and not feel those added pressures. And I'm curious, as it sounds like you said you spend a lot more time alone, and your
Mhm.
friends and you do different things. So, what are some things that you feel like you've learned about yourself through this journey, or new like passions
Ooh,
or just habits that you have gotten you excited as you've
yeah.
learned to look at it differently?
That is such a good question. I love it. I feel like I am reverting back to like a 12-year-old me almost. It's sort of almost like returning to yourself.
Hmm.
My fiance will joke with me because I've said it first that I'm like a little kid sometimes because I get excited about different things and I'm not afraid to like what I like.
Hmm.
So I got back into art. That's something I've always loved, and I love collecting art and
Yeah, I was
I
gonna say the art
love,
behind you is beautiful.
thank you. This was a gift. I took that middle photograph at my parents' farm,
Wow.
and that's, oh my gosh, it's escaping me. Oh, it's a company that's known for their super cute designs. I'll think of it. But I got back into making art,
Mm.
and I actually finished a huge, huge painting I'd been working on for over a year. That's hanging in our living room now. And I'm not like, it's not something I ever expect to like make money off of, or I don't even
Sure.
show people that much of it, but I love it. So I definitely got back into that. I got back into reading and listening to books. I love a good book. Like
Same.
oh my gosh. And that culture too has just like taken off.
Blowing up so much.
But I love that I can go on a walk and I can listen to a book, or when I'm making a long drive, I'm catching up on my podcast. I love podcasts, books.
Mhm.
Creating just really, really makes me happy. Spending time with my family, that's something I really, really prioritize. I'm an aunt and I love them more than anything. And so always trying to participate in their lives too. Yeah, it's the best way I can describe it is kind of a going back to who I was as a little girl
Mm.
and not being afraid to have fun. And I'm 40, so sometimes I am like a little kid about
Yeah.
certain things, or I don't know, it's kind of cool because you feel like you kind of have like a new life again, and the importance of doing things just for fun, just because you like
Mhm.
it, or buying something because it brings me joy. I'm not
Mhm.
into over consumerism, but I love to thrift. That's something that I got back into. Throughout my life, I've had periods of time where I would get into it. I love thrifting and antiquing and just the hunt and wondering what the story is behind things. So that's something else that I kind of return to. I mean, I've always been interested in fashion and things like that. And I mean, I try to express that sometimes on my Instagram. Sometimes it feels overwhelming, but there was one year where I challenged myself to post my outfits and make little videos almost every day. And yeah, just always kind of thinking about like what's a creative project I could do. Kind of next in my head is travel, getting back into
Mm.
travel again. That is something that I did so much of. And then I feel like I've been working a lot and, you know, but that's something that I want to prioritize kind of in my next decade is travel because I don't think anything's more inspiring than seeing new places, people, cultures. I always take something back that makes me want to like change my life in a positive way. So I cook. I love to cook. I also don't feel bad about resting. And that's something I
Mm.
had never really done before. Taking a nap, I love naps. I just always felt guilty, like I needed to be doing something. And sometimes that creeps in. I'm not going to lie. Um, but yeah, it's just sort of becoming a kid again is the best way that the thing that I discovered most about myself.
I just in hearing you like list all that, I can just see the joy on your face as you talk about it. And obviously, I knew you before your Instagram and stuff, but I have really enjoyed following you on Instagram because I think that is who you show up as online, is this person
Oh,
who is experiencing joy and is not ashamed in what brings you joy. And just you're so authentic. And I think as you know, you follow so many different people and it's really easy to compare, but it's nice to be able to
for sure.
compare, I should say, to someone who is just being authentic and saying like, this is what I enjoy and this is what brings me joy and like what brings you joy. And um, even
Mm-hmm.
just, the different ways that you communicate online, I think is such a unique gift to the world, and letting people see that about you, but also challenging them to like be their own individual person. You're not saying do this because I do this. Like what brings you this same feeling? And the rest
Mm-hmm.
topic, that is certainly an area of my life I need to get better at, is embracing that. And a book is probably the best way that I find to rest.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just like I said, I've loved following you just because of that authenticity that you bring. Does that authenticity come natural to you now? Like I know you said in your 20s, like you were maybe not showing up as authentically, but do
Mm-hmm.
you feel like it's really natural now? And maybe what has helped you, if so, get to that point?
That is, that's such a kind thing to say. I think that is one of the most generous compliments. So thank you. Yes, authenticity does come natural. I don't know how else to be now.
Hmm.
And I know when something isn't me, like I can feel it. Like I feel like if let's say I put a post out or something, if it wasn't me, I couldn't do it. It would feel
Hmm.
weird. Very interesting too in this time of AI content, I would
Yes.
say. I have this feeling a lot, not so much on Instagram, but maybe more so LinkedIn, and I'll see people posting and I'm like, that's not you.
Yep.
I don't think. And I also don't want to people change, people grow, but I do think it's very obvious. And so I think authenticity is even more important now because I think we all spot it when it's not. I talk
Yes.
about this a lot in actually my job as in marketing. Authenticity matters so much more now because we're seeing all of this content that isn't created by humans.
Hmm.
And I just think people really know when it's had a human touch or when it's from your heart or your brain or your creativity. But you feel aligned when you're showing up as your authentic self. And I would say, Carrie, you
Yeah.
too, you're somebody who I feel has always been authentic and comfortable in
Mm.
your skin and just somebody you look at and I'm like, oh, she's such a lovely person, because you do seem very aligned and everything. And I think people pick up on that. I'm glad that's how I appear because that is who I am. And I do want people to be themselves. I'm in my role at work. I manage people, meet people, and my number one thing is always to make sure that they feel supported and safe to be themselves. And that's something I've actually learned. I used to have a very, I think, narrow idea of how people should be, like how I want them to be, how I want them to react. And my fiance has actually helped me grow a lot in that, where he's had to tell me, just because you react this way or respond this way to something, I don't. And that's, or because you want this when you're sad, doesn't mean I want this when I'm sad. And I was like, so it's such a good lesson to learn. And then I think it makes you more authentic because you're aware of all those things. So I think the more rooted in yourself you can be, you're almost like a better person to other people too, because you want
Yes.
them to be fully themselves. And it takes a lot of, like, I think, grace and openness.
Yes. Thank you for your kindness. That was very sweet of you too. And it's certainly been a journey that I still don't think I have mastered. And I just turned 30 this year. So I think as
Oh my
you get
gosh.
older, some of that gets a little bit easier. But
Mm-hmm.
when you brought up leadership, I've been a manager for 5 years now. So I feel like we probably have a lot of things we can share.
Yeah.
But I think when I first became a manager or like leading people, there's so many books, podcasts, resources, articles. Like you could
Mm-hmm.
spend your entire life reading through things.
Yep.
And it wasn't until I did a lot of deep personal work in therapy that I felt like I actually unlocked who I am as a leader. And it was exactly what you just
Same.
said, that you you have to know yourself, and you have to know that you are unique in that self, that other people are not that
Yes.
same way, that they are going to have different reactions, or like what upsets me maybe isn't going to upset another person.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, as a leader, like that's what I want for them. Like I want them to know themselves so well that when we work together, they don't feel like they have to act or do what I think they need to do. Like they just show up as them and I show up as me. And together we navigate that. Like that's
Yep.
relationship, whether it's a working relationship, a partnership, a marriage, etc. Like that's how
Yep.
life is. And as much as it would be so easy if we could all just make everyone think and act the same way that we do, that's not why we like the people that we surround ourselves with. Like we like their differences and their
Mm-hmm.
unique traits and characteristics. And it's again, it's kind of a lifelong journey, but like you said, as a leader of others, like you want them to feel safe and welcomed. And that is how I have seen people just you're better at what you do when you are being yourself. Like you
Yes.
get to be who you are and you're not trying to fit into this box. And I look back at my early 20s, still certain days when maybe I'm not at my healthiest, that
Same.
you're trying to put yourself in this box. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
and that box feels like it can be really small sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
and really having to broaden my horizons. And I think now, again, being 30, I also would credit my husband as well. He is so authentic and just this joyful person. And I think at times, yes, I can still be like, oh, like I should do this, or like you said, you have this ideal version, especially in a
Mm-hmm.
professional setting. I think I always had this idea of like, what is a leader? And
Yeah.
then was exposed to people that really challenged that, of like, oh, that's not what I would have thought that looked like, and that doesn't mean that I have to do that, or I have to be this person who, wears the suit to work every day, or
Right.
wears the high heels, or does all these things. Like, no, I can lead just as well in a sweatshirt on a Friday
Mm-hmm.
afternoon. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
figuring out those things takes time, but like you said, it's nice when you can get to a point where it's like, that I don't know any other way. Like that's just how I show
Right.
up. And people can decide whether or not that works for them. And if not, then
Mm-hmm.
being okay with that.
Right. And in leadership too, if you're rooted in yourself and you're showing up authentically and you know who you are, you're not competing. I
Yes.
think that's something a lot of people don't think about. I want my team to be smarter than I am. I want them to all be better at their things than I am. That's not my role. My role is to lift them up and
Mhm.
help them thrive and be that sort of behind the scenes person who's there to help them grow, support, work through hard things. And I think that's something a lot of people don't think of. And I think also maybe in my early mid 20s, even into my very early 30s, like I feel like I had a lot of growth to do to understand that, because you have to be sure in yourself in order to be an effective leader, because you do have to want that best for everybody. Like I always tell people that I've supervised, I had made a LinkedIn post, and a couple of women who were on my team for a while had commented, "Oh, I remember meeting you." And I told them both, I still would do anything for you.
Yeah.
I do take that servant leadership role seriously. And I feel like it's like such a privilege to get to lead people, to be trusted in that, and to help them grow. And I think your direct supervisor, manager, they have such an impact on your
Yes.
career path, your mental health. So I always want to make sure that I'm, like being a positive impact. I don't want them to ever dread things. I don't. So, and maybe that's the millennial in me too, of like, I really just want them to feel good and supported. And because life is hard enough as it is. And, I always just want the goodness for everyone.
Yes. Whenever I am interviewing someone for my team or have a new person on my team, it's their first week. I think oftentimes people are very surprised by the personalization. Like, I will very
Mm,
blatantly say, like, I'm glad you're on our team. I'm like, you feel like you're going to be a great fit here, but also I care about you as a human more than I care about you as an employee. And like, I
absolutely.
want to get to know who you are. And I think sometimes that can be like, oh, wait, what? Like, you want
Hmm.
to know about like the people in my life and my pets and all of, and I was like, yes, tell me everything because that is who you are. And yes, you are also very talented at what you do, and that's amazing. And I want to help lift
Hmm.
that up. But at the end of the day, you're not talented at those things without being who you are, and you're a whole human. And I just think that, like you said, being able to be their cheerleader takes a lot of that own personal work. And
Hmm.
that, like, I think the authenticity and vulnerability, we go back to that because certainly when I first started as a manager and I had team meetings and I maybe was having a tough day or I didn't feel like I had
Hmm.
all the things together, it was okay, put on the brave face, show up to the meeting. You've got this figured out, like, be all
Hmm.
together. And now, just this week, I had a meeting with my team and I was like, I just need to be super honest. I have a lot on my plate right now, and I'm probably not
Hmm.
in the best headspace. Like, how can I support you all, but also just
Yep.
where I'm at and being able to like actually vocalize that and not feel like you do have to be this perfectly packaged leader for them. And I think
Hmm.
they see that and they go, oh, that means that I don't have to be perfectly packaged for this
Right.
person. And that mirroring has really created great relationships for me at work. And I feel like has
Hmm.
allowed me to be a better leader and to recognize that we also don't have to fix everything for them. Like you were saying,
No.
like you want to empower them to deal with those difficult
Yep.
situations. That doesn't mean that we as the leader have the answer, even though we might in our head. But how do we empower them to come up with the answer on their own and then be able
Hmm.
to celebrate when they figure that out for themselves and be like, see, I knew, like, yes, you're so amazing. And again, that all takes a lot of personal just trust in yourself that like,
It does.
okay, I can lead this person through this and I don't have to fix it for them and it's going to be fine. We're going to survive this. Like, yeah, there's a lot of that knowing yourself to be able to show up in
There
those
is.
ways for people.
And I think people really appreciate. I used to say like, "Oh, I'm not as professional as this person," or
Hmm.
in professional in like a traditional sense.
Yes.
And I used to kind of get down on myself for it, but now I'm like, you know what? I life is too short, number one, that I'm going to do this my way.
Hmm.
And I think there's a lot to be said for showing up for your team every day, but showing up like you did, very honestly. I mean, I've certainly been there where it's like, you guys, I'm having a week and here's where I'm at. And I think it just makes people, I'm very lucky that some of the people that I've been managing since I started there. I hired them as interns and then they got hired full time. And they're so caring. that they'll say, "How are you doing?" And I'm like,
Yes.
it makes you almost want to cry because you're like, you're such a good person. It's like very reciprocal where they care about me too, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not. It's not just one sided. They're like, "How are you? Is there anything I can do?" And it's like, wow, you're incredible.
Yes.
But I think that it really, I wouldn't want it any other way, even though I'm sure there's a million leadership coaches out there who would say, well, you should do this and this. Well, I've got to do what feels right. And I think some of that can be determined too by the kind of people you're managing. I mean, there
Mm-hmm.
certainly are people who aren't going to want to share a lot about their life, and work is a 40-hour week commitment. That's
Mm-hmm.
okay too. How can I
Yep.
be a good leader for you?
Mm-hmm.
So that's something else that I've had to learn too, of like, it's all got to be shaped by the people, and much like personal relationships too, what one person needs in a certain situation isn't what the other. So there's so much emotional work, I think, in being an effective leader that people don't think about. It's
Oh.
it's it can be draining even when it's like
Mm-hmm.
really good, because you're like, oh my gosh, like you sort of carry that with you if something's like off with someone or they're going through something hard in their personal life, and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my gosh, I just want to like protect you, or I you want to make everything better. But like I said, I'm really lucky that I do work with other leaders who always support each other, and you need those people kind of at your same level to
Mm-hmm.
be like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. And you need someone to keep. I just had a conversation last week with we have an amazing learning and development. I call her coach, and she said, hey, keep fighting the good fight. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's why she's in the role she's in, because
Mm-hmm.
she's so incredible. But you sometimes just need somebody to kind of remind you to keep going, because leadership, managing, man, it is the hardest thing that I've ever done professionally.
110%. I could not agree more. And it's that two-sided situation of it's the hardest, most challenging. I have days where I go, oh my goodness, why did I say yes to these things? Like, and you really hit the nail on the head when you said it's that emotional burden of I care so deeply about these people. And so whether it's
Mm-hmm.
something that maybe didn't go the way we wanted it to, maybe a project just didn't go the way, or we didn't get the answers that we wanted, or like you said, it is something in their personal life that like I have 0% control over and cannot fix in any sense of the
Mm-hmm.
way. You just feel so much just heart for them of like, I wish I could make this better, balanced with it's also one of the most rewarding things that I think I have done in my
Mm-hmm.
professional career and has really helped me understand how much I love developing people and helping them figure out
Yes.
their just potential and watching that journey of you maybe came in and you were already amazing, but now I have gotten to see you flourish at something that you are just spectacular at, and
Mm-hmm.
be able to just be alongside them and to learn with them and coach them and share what I've learned, but then also learn so much in return from them. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I lead a team of 12 or 11, and have been in my specific position for longer, or at the place that I work for longer than any of them. And so in my head at times it's like, oh, yes, I do know all these random facts about our company
Mm-hmm.
that like why do I know that information? But then there's also this like wonderful thing of for someone who is very type A like myself and feels like yep, this is how we do. Like I have it all figured out, to work with someone who works very differently and then create something in a way that I go, my gosh, where have you
Mm-hmm.
been this whole time? Like
Mm-hmm.
that is so amazing. And to just see that and be able to go, you're teaching me as much as I am sharing with you and learning with you. And that is such a rewarding experience. And I think it's also very rewarding that people trust you so much with their career development. Like I've thought about that a lot as a leader, that like people really are putting a lot of their career into your hands, and that's scary to think of, like this
Yeah.
person like is partially responsible for helping me develop and grow in my career. and just how amazing it is for people to put that on you, which also makes you want, as a leader, to take that even more seriously and to be like, what can
Mm-hmm.
I do to learn about myself, to be the best person for you because you are trusting me so much. And it's just a very incredible experience that requires a lot of authenticity and boldness.
It does. Absolutely, it does. Yeah, everything you said, I mean, with watching people say they may do a project in a new way or something like that, those are the best moments. Where you're like, my gosh, or hearing, we do a lot of client meetings and things. And sometimes when I hear somebody finally kind of find their voice, work up their confidence,
Hmm.
and I hear the way they're explaining something to a client, I'm so proud. And
Yes.
I want to just not talk,
Yep.
please take it away. Like, that is the best thing. It's like, I talk, like, we push the birdies out of the nest, and it's like, hey, you're flying. And that is like the ultimate, but it is a huge responsibility. And I think, honestly, the world would be better if everybody took that so seriously. And
Hmm.
you have to want the best for your team. I want them to make the most money. I want them
Yeah.
to succeed. I want them to feel good at work. And I think that often gets like, you can't care about that. No,
Hmm.
life is, like I said, it's hard enough.
Yep.
We are at work 40 plus, let's be real, hours a week. I don't want someone to not feel safe. I don't want them to feel scared at work. I don't want them to feel bad. We all have bad
Hmm.
days. We all have things that happen, but in general, they should feel good if
Yeah.
you're doing it right.
I strongly agree. I always joke to my best friend, I was like, this is the soapbox that I like will get on and go on forever of the experience that you provide for people, especially
Mm-hmm.
as a leader. And that, I think you said it earlier where you said like some of that is changing where, or like your version of professionalism, like recognizing like I'm going to do what I know to be true.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has been something I struggle with at times as I've done different trainings that I've learned more of like,
Yeah.
guys, there is a better way. Why do we keep doing the same thing over and over again? And just wanting that experience for people because I've had
Mm-hmm.
that with leaders who've led me
Me
and have
too.
treated me with such kindness and have shown me that safety and security. And it just always blows my mind and I'm like, you everyone, come on, we can all agree that like we can do this in a better way. And can just get very fired up about it. Maybe someday that'll be
Mm-hmm.
my LinkedIn like newsletter. It's like, okay, there's a better way.
I would subscribe. So please do that.
Maybe I have an idea notebook that has a lot of things in it.
Oh,
So
I
maybe
love that.
someday that will happen. But we've talked a lot about being a leader and showing up authentically. And I want to go back to your original like bold moment. And we talked about
Sure.
their sober journey. But then the other side of that was taking care of a
Yeah.
close friend in those last moments of his life. And so I think, you shared how without the sober journey that you maybe would not have been able to do that. And I'm just curious through that whole experience, like how does authenticity, how does showing up boldly, or just how does it all fit into like
Mm-hmm.
that moment of your life and how you were
Mm-hmm.
able to be there for that person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so many things. So I wasn't sober the whole time I was caregiving. So that's another thing that I don't know how I did it sometimes when I was,
Sure.
hungover and needing to go to his apartment at 3 in the morning to shut his window because he couldn't get out of bed. So one of my best friends, David, I had known him since high school. We dated briefly. We were always just best friends though. He had a mess and just never quite got the treatment that he needed because of,
Mm,
honestly, like looking back, it was mental health stuff. It was feeling discouraged by doctors and just various other things, where he didn't quite have maybe the support.
mm,
But he always had it from me, my family, one of our close friends, and his family too. So I wasn't alone in the journey, but there certainly were times where I had to be pretty brave. But I think in that, throughout that process, which was several years long, you learn how far you'll go, like as an advocate for someone. And I learned so much about how much work we have to do in a lot of we all know healthcare, right? But beyond healthcare, housing and things like that. Like one example I always share with people is he couldn't work anymore. He was in a wheelchair and he needed to get into a housing situation where he could have care. But like he wasn't nursing home level yet. And so he had to apply for Section 8 housing. And anyway, the whole process, he got a physical piece of mail, which I would go over to his apartment because he did try to live independently and had care come in
Sure.
for as long as he could. And so we got this letter saying that they had run a background check and my Midwestern accent came out there. They'd run a background check and had some questions because suspicious things were showing up. Well, first of all, it wasn't an accurate background check. It was actually somebody who wasn't even him, but the software they used, I don't know, was super outdated, something like that. But anyway, the only way you could appeal it is to go physically downtown on Broadway to the housing authority, and he had to come. So
wow.
a person in a wheelchair, you have to get special transportation. And it's not always covered because he was on Medicaid. So I learned that like, oh, it's going to cost, I don't know, $900 to do this, but we have to. So you arrange a transportation. The transportation has to come back, get him in there. It's not the most accessible building. And all to have like an interview. And my friend was amazing because he always kept his humor and he handled it like a champ. And I was very lucky that one of my friends works in the cities, and the company she works for is her brother-in-law's sister's company. Anyway, they do a lot of housing, and she said, I'm going to run a background check on him that you can bring. So I brought an official background check, and I said, hey, and the one that they ran, it wasn't even him. It was like a man who was like in his 50s. And so I was like, okay, if David didn't have me, his application would have been denied. And if he had missed that one piece of mail, he would have had to wait, I think it's like 3 years or something to apply again. So there's all these obstacles we put in place that I learned about that were super frustrating. The paperwork, I actually just deleted a bunch of emails out of my Gmail from that time. The paperwork I had to physically fill out for him was, I bet, this tall. He couldn't write.
Yeah. Wow.
So like, it doesn't matter now, but I will say I was very bold in that I filled a lot of things out. I fibbed at times. I did a lot of things to ensure he stayed alive and well and taken care of. And it was just so eye-opening. And even we were very lucky, like in doctors, nurses, they did things that were probably out of protocol because I was like, hey, I'm his person here. I'm not family. I'm not related. I'm not. But look, so you really do see like this incredible part of humanity, but you also see this other part of humanity where, like, I remember his social worker, I had to call her and I said, I feel like you're giving up on him, because she had told me there's nothing they could do in this certain situation. I was like, so then what?
Wow.
Like, there's just so much of that. And that's something that I had always promised myself. I would look into seeing how I could make that better at some point. He passed away, I think it's been 3 years. I can't remember off the top of my head. His anniversary of his death is coming up. And I just remember it because you remember those times. I remember saying goodbye to him, and I didn't necessarily know it was goodbye, but it's just a situation that I never knew I could be that brave. And like, just some of the things I had to do, it was something I never wanted to do again. I think anybody who's been in a situation like that knows caregiving is one of the hardest things I think anybody will ever do in their whole life, especially when it's a situation where you're kind of on your own with an adult who still is very stubborn. They're sick. He was a handful. I mean, but he didn't, when I would think about the reality of he's in his 30s and he's dying,
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, you can act however you want. Like,
Yeah.
life's not been fair to you. But he was one of my best friends. He just wanted to make people smile. And he also kind of inspired to like making art. He loved art. He was an artist.
Mm.
He made music. He was super talented in that way. He would skateboard. He was into biking until he couldn't, but very, very creative person. And so I always think of him because I would ask him when I was that he did live in many nursing homes. And I was like, what do you want to do? And he's like, I wish I could make art. And so I always think of that, like, make the art for him, do it for him, or the gratitude factor. I remember calling him one day. I had to go to Target to pick up, essentials, and I was just annoyed because I wanted to go home, and I was like, oh, I have to go to Target and get out. He said, hey, that sounds amazing, and I was like,
Mm.
you know, you're right. Those normal days.
Yeah.
So I try not to take normalcy for granted, and just that whole situation. Sometimes I can't believe that I ever did it. I
Yeah.
really can't. Like, just there's so much to it, and I'm glad that I was there for him. And I wish he was still here. I
Mm.
really wish he was still here, but he made a huge impact on my life. And I know that someday I'm going to take everything that I learned and I will try and make it better for other people, because I I think everyone deserves to have an advocate in
Mm-hmm.
their life. And it also has made me advocate more for my own health and things like that,
Yeah.
and to encourage other people
Mm-hmm.
too.
Yes. Thank you for sharing his memory with us. He sounds like a very, very special person. And from what you just shared, I can very much tell that how much of an impact he had on you. And it really sounds like what you learned from that experience is why you are the leader that you are, why or
Mm-hmm.
how you are again, we going back to the showing up online, like so much of as you were sharing, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense why you care so deeply about these people. And
I
I'm sure
do.
you that person before, but that experience had a really profound effect on you. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's beautiful to see how like now you get to
Thank
take that
you.
experience and create this like really beautiful safe place for people to be a part of, whether it's your work team or even just the online
Mm-hmm.
community that you have crafted of people that follow you, and really just that bright light, like I said earlier,
You're
like I
so
said, I
sweet.
love the follow because it you are the person. I distinctly remember you had a post, I think it was around like weight loss drugs or GLP was
Oh
something,
my
and it was like
gosh,
an ad
yes.
that you had screenshotted, and I at first saw it and I was like, what is Anna posting? Like that is not who I know her to be. And then I realized you were challenging like this is all I have seen, and if you need a
Mm-hmm.
reminder, and immediately I was like, I I knew that she had a purpose here, like, and it was such a beautiful message. And again, I think I've seen that in so many ways in just our conversation today of how you show up in this world. So
Well,
thank
thank
you for
you.
sharing that experience and even just educating us all. I mean, I've never been in that situation, and just to I have family in healthcare, so I know
Sure.
and learn that right the system is needs so much work, but to hear it directly
Mm-hmm.
from someone and just to know like how can we all be that advocate for people? How can we speak
Sure.
up for those? And I see that so much in you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, thank you.
absolutely. And as we are closing, because gosh, this time I feel like I could spend hours
I
talking with
know.
you, Anna. So, well, I have to continue the conversation, but we've talked a lot about your boldness, these big moments who have made you who you are. And so as you think about your legacy and what that looks like, tell us what you like, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh my goodness. I remember you asked me to think about this question. I can't remember what my immediate thought was, but legacy, I mean, I would really just want to be known as somebody who left things better than I found them. Let's say it that way. There's a quote that I can't remember, but if you make even one person's life a little bit easier, you've
Mm.
succeeded. And I really believe in that, that if I made someone feel less alone, that's kind of what drives me actually to share anything I do. If I can help you feel less alone in this moment, even if it's one person, good. Because that's all we all kind of need sometimes, is to know somebody gets it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're a leader, a friend, whatever, all goes back to that, making people feel safe to be themselves and knowing they're not alone. I think if everybody practiced that, you know, the world would probably be a lot better. But I also hope that I can leave some sort of impact on my niece and my nephew as somebody who loved them and accepted them fully and helped them experience like cool things in life. And I just hope I can always be that person who they can go to with anything. But beyond that, I don't know yet. And I'm excited for the next decades of my life, honestly. I don't feel old. I don't feel like I'm nearing the end. I'm only 40, but
Yeah.
you know how culture is. I feel like I'm actually in this really exciting time of just getting started.
Wow. We didn't even talk about being aunts, so that will have to be part two because I
Oh,
feel that so deeply in my
it's
heart as
the
well.
best
The
ever.
best.
I didn't know.
Nope. It's truly, truly the best. And you said wanting to make people feel less alone. When I
Mm-hmm.
started this podcast and was thinking about like what do I want to talk about, that was actually a big part of it, is hearing other people's stories and how much power there is
Mm-hmm.
in a story. And when you hear someone else talk about something that maybe you've experienced and you recognize like, oh, there's someone else that has gone through this. And so today I think your episode is
Mm-hmm.
really going to do that for so many people. And I'm excited to share the world your story because it needs to be heard. So Anna, thank you for
Oh,
your time today,
Carrie,
truthfully, and for
thank you
sharing just
so
everything.
well. Thank you so much. This was definitely my honor. Happy to help you however I can. But yeah, this was definitely the high point of my week. So thank you very much.
Mm. It was mine as well. My cheeks always hurt at the end of these episodes because I'm smiling so much. Where I just love these conversations. So
Mm,
I can't wait to continue it at some point and
yeah,
just thank you again for sharing. So
you're so welcome.
awesome. Well, with that, to all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you again next month.